Chapter 2 is the moment where the Van der Linde gang finally gets to breathe, at least for a little while. After escaping the freezing chaos of Coulter, after the failed ferry job in Blackwater, after losing people and almost losing themselves, they finally find a quiet patch of land at Horseshoe Overlook. And what makes Chapter 2 so fascinating is that it's the only time in the game where the gang actually looks like what Dutch always claimed it could be. A large, functional family, working together, surviving together, and for a brief moment, believing that maybe Dutch really does have a plan. But beneath that calm surface, cracks are already forming, and the seeds of the gang's downfall are being planted in ways that most players don't notice at first. Things start out surprisingly well. The camp is organized, the weather is cooperative, and morale is higher than it's been since the gang left Blackwater. Arthur starts doing runs with Hosea, teaching the twins to hunt, joking with Lenny, and even bonding a bit with John after their tensions in Coulter. Dutch appears calm, collected, and confident. This is the version of Dutch that people remember fondly, the charismatic leader who could inspire loyalty in anyone. He talks about the gang getting back on our feet, and he actually seems to mean it. He trusts Arthur, he trusts Hosea, and he still has a sense of restraint. When he says they need money, but they'll take their time, that they'll blend in and avoid unnecessary violence, he's not lying. At least not yet. A lot actually does go right for them in this chapter. Their first jobs in Valentine are light, profitable, and relatively low risk. They scout the town, get the lay of the land, and blend in as harmless ranch hands or travelers. Arthur helps Strauss with debt collections, and although those jobs become darker later in the story, here in Chapter 2 they feel simple enough. Like small errands rather than the beginning of the gang's moral collapse. The gang also starts building key relationships. Hosea charms the Valentine sheriff, Arthur meets Mary Beth and Tilly's contacts, and some of the locals start seeing the gang as just another group passing through. Not dangerous criminals. Even the small tasks, fencing stolen items, upgrading camp, helping Pearson, help the gang stabilize financially. For once, the Van der Linde gang isn't running, they're living. But the very things that make Chapter 2 peaceful are also the things that lay the groundwork for what's coming. For one, Dutch's confidence starts drifting right back into arrogance. When he sees the gang doing well, he starts believing he's unstoppable again. His old habits return? Not the violent ones just yet, but the delusional ones. He tells Hosea they just need one big score, the same lie he's going to repeat all the way up to the end. He dismisses Hosea's cautious approach, insisting that they can pull off something bigger if everyone just trusts him. Even though he's calm on the outside, you can feel the shift. He's itching for a win that's grander than the small, sustainable life Hosea envisions. And then there's Micah. Chapter 2 is the moment Micah begins gaining influence over Dutch. At first it seems harmless. Micah brings in the idea for robbing the O'Driscoll camp, and Dutch goes with it. And on the surface, that job goes well. They hit the camp, find dynamite, kill off O'Driscolls, and feel victorious. But this is the moment Dutch starts rewarding Micah for recklessness. Arthur immediately senses something's off, but Dutch ignores him. This is one of the first real fractures in their relationship. Dutch begins listening to the person telling him what he wants to hear, instead of the people telling him what he needs to hear. The trouble in Valentine is another thing that looks small but becomes huge. The bar fight with Tommy starts off like any classic Western scuffle. Two cowboys throwing punches, the town watching. But the aftermath is the problem. Valentine now sees the gang differently. Trouble follows them, and even though the fight wasn't planned, it sets the stage for how the gang interacts with the world. Chaos follows them everywhere, even when they try to lie low. The same pattern repeats during the Cornwall train heist. They pull it off, yes, but it's far from clean. They blow the doors, anger Cornwall, and reveal themselves as a group capable of major armed robbery. That single heist puts Cornwall directly on their trail, and through him, the Pinkertons. What felt like a victorious score is actually the moment the gang puts a giant target on their back. Even the small decisions start stacking up in dangerous ways. Strauss's debt collections, which felt harmless, mark the beginning of Arthur confronting the dark side of the gang's survival methods. Javier and Bill's temper problems start showing. Pearson relies completely on Arthur for supplies. Kieran gets captured and introduced to the gang, and while he becomes loyal later, his presence invites more O'Driscoll conflict. And the Valentine Bank job setup, Dutch's talk of opportunity and easy money, is the first time we see his greed outweighing his caution. Chapter 2 is overflowing with moments where things go right for the gang on the surface, but go disastrously wrong beneath it. But the biggest problem of Chapter 2 isn't a job or a fight or a bad decision. It's time. The gang spends too long in one place. Dutch insists they're lying low, but every day they stay, they become more noticeable. And even though the gang enjoys this period, drinking, dancing, playing games, fishing, the world around them is changing. Lawmen are getting organized. Pinkertons are getting smarter. Cornwall is getting angrier. Every day the gang relaxes, someone else gets closer to catching them. Chapter 2 is the illusion of stability. It's the gang at its happiest, its healthiest, its most complete. The characters bond, they grow, they argue, they laugh, they live, and that's exactly why what follows hits so hard. Everything that will go wrong in the story can be traced back to seeds planted here. Dutch losing caution, Micah gaining influence, Cornwall becoming an enemy, the Pinkertons starting their hunt, and Arthur slowly beginning to question whether Dutch's vision is real or just a dream slipping further out of reach. What went right is everything the gang ever wanted. A quiet place, money flowing, friendships growing, and Dutch acting like the leader they believed in. What went wrong is everything that destroys them. Pride, recklessness, misplaced trust, and the growing realization that their way of life is ending, even if they don't want to face it yet. Chapter 2 is the final breath before the storm. The last time the gang feels whole and the moment where the future could have gone another way, but didn't. Another thing that becomes clear when you look deeper into Chapter 2 is how different members of the gang start revealing who they truly are when life gets comfortable. When people aren't just focused on surviving the cold or running from gunfire, their personalities and their flaws become more obvious. Take Bill Williamson. In Chapter 2, he's constantly trying to prove he's valuable, but also constantly messing things up. He wants to impress Dutch, but he's too impulsive, too angry, and too unpredictable. Dutch doesn't see the danger in that yet, but Arthur does. The cracks in the gang's internal dynamic are starting to show, even in small conversations. Then there's Javier, who is loyal, skilled, and hardworking, but also deeply proud and stubborn. He's one of the few who still believes in Dutch wholeheartedly at this stage, and you can hear it in the way he talks. But that loyalty becomes a problem later because Javier's dedication keeps him from noticing the changes in Dutch that Arthur and Hosea pick up on almost immediately. Chapter 2 is full of moments where characters show who they'll eventually become. You can almost map out the gang's future just from how they act around Horseshoe Overlook. Uncle is another example. At first he seems harmless, lazy, and joking, the comedic break from all the tension. But Arthur's frustration with Uncle in Chapter 2 isn't just played for humor. It's a sign of how the gang handles responsibility. While everyone else is contributing, hunting, scouting, planning, cooking, Uncle is just drifting through life. And normally that wouldn't be a big deal. But when the gang's survival depends on everyone pulling their weight, someone who refuses to work becomes a real problem. Arthur sees it, maybe more clearly than Dutch or Hosea, because Arthur is the one constantly doing everyone's chores. That seeds resentment that grows throughout the game and shows how unevenly responsibility is distributed within the gang. Even the camp itself is revealing. During Chapter 2, Horseshoe Overlook feels alive. Karen is rowdy, Sean's return brings laughter, Mary Beth and Tilly write and read stories, and Susan Grimshaw maintains order with an iron fist. But you can also sense the tension beneath it. Grimshaw's constantly trying to control everything because she knows the gang's peace depends on discipline, something Dutch is becoming too relaxed about. She's the first person to sense that Dutch isn't quite the same leader he used to be, and her attempts to maintain order foreshadow the chaos she ultimately can't stop. Another important part of Chapter 2 is Arthur's emotional journey. Even though he tries to act cold and professional, you start seeing the man he really is. The one who helps Mary's brother, the one who teaches Jack to fish, the one who cares for the camp children, the one who looks out for the more vulnerable members of the gang. And in these moments, Arthur stands out as someone who still has a heart, even if he buries it deep. But the irony is that the more Arthur shows compassion,